You're listening to Leadership's Insights, Navigating Career and Life. I am Maggie Rombach, your host, bringing inspiring stories and practical advice on leadership, career development, and work-life balance.
Today, I'm as excited as every time to have another great leader with me today. And as you might have noticed, I'm kind of bringing back people I worked in the past and I got inspired during my work. So today we have Vijitha Eyango, who I worked with back in the days in UNICEF Cameroon. So with this, I pass it straight to you, Vijitha, to kick it off with maybe just describing briefly your own leadership story for us.
Well, Maggie, it is absolutely great to reconnect with you. I can't believe it's been almost 15 years. 15 or almost 15, going to be 16 years since we met at UNICEF. Yeah. So my leadership story, I would say, begins actually with my time in Ghana. I was born and raised in Ghana. But as you know, my parents are Sri Lankan. And the reason why I talk about it starting in Ghana is because I was bullied a lot. Because I wasn't so clever in school. I didn't know about rote memorization. And I also was a bit darker than most Indians who lived in Ghana and Sri Lankans. So I was bullied. And then by the time I finished my secondary school education, one of the most famous DJs on campus said, "I love your color. It's chocolate." And that gave me a jump to my step. And I said, "Hey, I think I am going to be a leader." And so that journey started at a sort of young age. But and then I came to the US, and I would say that I kind of pushed myself along thinking I would never make it even to an undergraduate degree. And there were leaders who influenced me. So I would call that part of my leadership journey, who convinced me that no, you have to also not only do a master's, a PhD. And when I finished my PhD, I was asked to teach at UCLA, and I felt like, my goodness, now I feel like I'm in an academic leadership position. And then I moved to USAID, and I loved the engagement with the US government and executing programs. That took about 10 years. So I considered myself then a leader in policy, and then moved to UNICEF. And suddenly I was in a country working on programs for young girls, young boys in school, with a lot of partners, local partners. And I felt that gave me much more rounded experience. And most recently, I would say, from that, I jumped back to UCLA to teach for a few years, did a couple more years as a youth director in IREX, and then jumped back to Cameroon, where I am right now. And the last 4 years, I would say my leadership journey has been creating an NGO that focuses on giving skills to out-of-school youth, particular incarcerated youth. But I've also started adding displaced populations and out of school kids. So it's been a very sort of a scattered journey, but I would say I'm the forever looking to be a leader. So I can't say this is the end of my journey, because it's a journey in progress. So that's my answer, my dear.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, it's so important what you mentioned about role models, and we get back to that question as part of the questions, because it's so true. We need people to aspire to show us the path. So yeah, thanks for sharing your journey. So with that, we'll jump into the first question, which is, could you share your top 3 guiding values, both in your career and your personal life?
I would say the 3 would be honesty would be my first. The second, I would say, was timeliness, whether it's personal or professional, and compassion for people who you work with, who are around you, who you engage with.
Yeah, I like that. Honesty, timeliness, and compassion. Thanks. So over to the next one. Which accomplishment in your life are you proudest of, and why?
There is one, and I would say that was the end of my leadership journey, the last 4 years, where I created this NGO, which I never anticipated creating from scratch, and it just in response to a real need, not a perceived need. You know, my journey had taken me from academia to policy, and so often it is almost like we were designing programs in response to a perceived need. And this gave me an opportunity to actually be here in Cameroon, see the realities of unemployed youth, see the realities of incarcerated youth who are going to leave prison with no hope, seeing the opportunities of agriculture and designing, but not on my own, designing with amazing people from Future Farmers of America and the US, taking those ideas, coming to Cameroon, going to Consamba and co-designing with government partners, with the prison director, with other amazing youth, and creating a program that I had decided I would fund it. I did not want past interference from donors who tell me, nope, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. I was able to create it based on the need, based on collaboration with others and execute it. And I would say that I had originally planned that it would be no more than a 6-month commitment, but to really build a model that's sustainable, you can't just do 6 months. That is a great learning experience from designing from the ground up, and that'll inform, and that continues to inform every single thing I do.
Wow, that's amazing. And it really sounds like it kind of brings all your previous experiences together to be able to do that. So it's really inspiring.
Yep.
Great. So over to the next one, which is around when hiring and promoting individuals, what qualities matter most beyond technical skills?
You're going to hear some repetition, honesty, punctuality,
timeliness,
yes, and hardworking.
Yeah, that's so true. So honesty, hardworking, that's important.
And punctuality. Yeah, because I would say that this goes for like students. Because when you talk about, when you're asking this question, I just think of who are the people I've worked with, whether it has to do with students from UCLA or students from Davis, or at when I was engaging with my team in Washington, or right here in UNICEF. When I just look back, and even at that time, I would say that those were because you mentioned outside, beyond technical skills, I would say that was most important.
That's so interesting. You say that, because it makes me realize when we work together, being German, it helped me to be really timely. And maybe that got me some points with you back in the days without even realizing.
Absolutely. No, because punctuality, it means punctuality in arriving to work. Respect, right away, punctuality goes with respect. You respect people's time. You can't make people wait for you, because that shows respect. It goes back to being compassionate, because you're always worried about other people and you're making sure that you're being held responsible and accountable to your own requirements. And so all those things come as such a critical package. And integrity comes front and center wherever I've been, so.
Integrity and respect. So it's almost underlying of the others. Yeah.
And then you can have people who have a lot of integrity. They're always punctual, and they don't work. And so you've got to actually add that. So that's my little recipe.
Absolutely. That sounds like a good recipe. Get work delivered, and on top, bring some additional skills. Cool. So the next one is about work-life balance. What would be your top tip how to maintain work-life balance in today's fast-paced world?
That's a very difficult question to answer, because when I was just thinking about the current state that we're in, I would have probably answered it very differently, maybe even 5 years ago. But I just think just taking time off from technology, from your phones, from your computer, is the first step to maintaining that work-life balance, because it gives you time to think. It gives you time to really identify what are the priorities, whether it's work, whether it's life. But the fixation with being always online, or being there to hear a notification, and even on the personal side, keeping your phone on, hoping that if there's an emergency, you'll be able to be contacted, all that stuff, I think that has to be minimized. So I would say that's my top tip that I'm using for myself as well.
Yeah, that is a great tip. And I'm trying to detoxify myself these days a bit, but it's really hard. We're so used to it. But yeah, it's a great tip.
Yes.
So here comes the next one. Could you share one valuable lesson from your private life, whether it's sports or arts or whatever it might be, that helped you at work?
You're going to hear something for the third time. It's my father, because of his time consciousness. He is the one who made us time conscious. He worked in the civil service in Ghana as an architect. And, Ghana is not known for, you invite someone at 8 o'clock, whether it's a meeting or whether it's a dinner, and no one shows up at 8 o'clock. But guess what? My dad, for 20 years, showed up on time, every single time. And even when he was picking me up from my UCLA days at the airport, he'd leave the house and arrive at the airport before my plane had even taken off. So he really reinforced how critical it is to be time conscious, and that has followed me throughout my life. Yes.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So the next question is about a significant role model. So you cannot bring up your dad again. I mean, you can, but there might be others. So who is a significant role model for you, and what makes them your role model?
No, that's a no-brainer. There's this professor called Professor Mike Locke. I met him when I first went to UCLA to start my master's, and I worked with him for about 2 to 3 months as a graduate researcher on a program and a project that he had received funds from the US government to execute. It is an African bibliography project. 2 months in that project, he asked me whether I'd take over the whole project because the director of the project was moving to USC. I said I needed a month to think about it, but the fact that he had thought that I would handle that responsibility was a huge intervention in that leadership journey that I talked to you about at the beginning. And after a month of thinking, I accepted. And from my master's to my PhD, we became colleagues because we co-wrote proposals together. We traveled to Washington to give demonstrations of our projects. We got funding together, and then we became co-principal investigators once I became a professor. When I was looking for a change and moving into the policy environment, it was Mike Locke who wrote my letter of recommendation for USAID, and the details, the depth of information he knew about me is what got me that very highly prized position at USAID in Washington. And I was told that by the director who hired me several months later. She said, that Professor Locke, his letter, it was long, it was 3 pages, but he knew you intimately. And that's really what gave you that edge. And to imagine that same professor is the person who also gave me the recommendation for UNICEF. And the head of UNICEF, who you remember, Ora Musu Clemens, she talked about Mike's letter. And after UNICEF, guess who asked me to come and design classes for students, aspiring students working in development? It was Mike Locke again. So it was with him I designed. I worked for 4 years back at UCLA after my UNICEF time. And I met him again for lunch last year, and I continued keeping appraised. So that is, to me, the most critical thing a person needs. It's never too late, but that has been such a critical role model for me in my professional life.
That's amazing. And it's been like decades together now on a joint journey. That's really amazing.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Great. So this was the 6 questions, and now comes the fun bit, or the even more fun bit, which I call the quick fire burst. So the way this works is I'll fire a question at you, and I challenge you to answer with 1 word. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 words, but the idea is to really keep that quick, dynamic, and concise. Are you ready for that?
I am always ready for you, Maggie.
Excellent. So here we go. Could you please describe your leadership style in one word?
Nurturing.
Nurturing?
Mm-hmm.
Great. What's the key to successful teamwork?
I would say collaboration.
Great. One must-read book.
I even took a passage from it today to give to my daughter. It's a no-brainer for me. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
Okay, I looked that one up, The Prophet. Cool. Type of dream job, if not the current one that you'd like to do, maybe not a specific position, but the type of activity you'd want to do.
It's two words, Maggie. Sorry. No, I can use one word, scaffolding. Scaffolding, because, it's related to capacity building. So like, just think of a building. I use this even when I was working in the Ministry of Education in Afghanistan. Scaffolding. It holds up a building. You move it and let the building stay alone and stands firm. I love to build capacity, and that's what I'd love to be doing for the rest of my life. Institutional capacity, human capacity. Yeah. So that's
I
many
love
words,
that image.
my dear.
But that's great. I use that word because I also love doing that. So I never heard that word, but I'm definitely going to use it. And the image as well with the building and to make it stand alone. So if you had a superpower, what would be your superpower?
Come on, Maggie. I'm a diehard American. The US is the only superpower. With all our faults, I stand by that country. It gave me so much.
No. But
It
what's your
continues to give me.
personal superpower? If you could like fly or I don't know, what would your personal superpower be?
Oh, I'd love to win the lottery and be able to impact and design programs that change the lives of youth.
Nice. I like that. To basically, the superpower would be to magically help youth.
It's
Right.
the superpower would becoming the Midas touch.
Nice. That'd be cool. And what are you most grateful for?
Most grateful for would be I would say parents. That's the mindset that came with them because they were very open. My father was a Hindu, my mom is a Christian, so they come to Ghana. Our entire family ends up marrying people who are not Sri Lankan, so they're so open. And then the whole idea of giving back, I would say that's been a huge influence. Never judging, always embracing diversity, inclusion, the kind of things that we're trying to get people to, integrate, embody. They had it. So I would say that I'm most grateful for them and the experiences they gave us to make me who I am.
Nice. I hope they'll be listening to this, or I'm sure they know that anyway, but yeah.
My dear dad died in January of this year, but I'm sure he's having a good listen.
He'll pick up the vibes no matter where he is, I'm sure.
Of course.
Wow, so that was it already. Really, thanks so much. And as we wrap this up, could you share one parting thought on what career advice you would offer to your 18-year-old self, or just really anybody who's just starting out their own professional journey?
So, when you mentioned what are you most grateful for, this is kind of linked to that. It's not my parents, but the United States. The US taught me from a very early age because I came to the US when I was 20. So you're talking about an 18-year-old. But I felt being in California gave me the opportunity to dream big because it's something about that. So it could be any context. If I had to really give some advice, it'd be like dream big, but you have to work hard to get there. It's not exactly career advice, but you can dream big. But if your dream has nothing to do with employment in the future, you'll be dreaming for nothing. So you have to not only dream big, you work hard to get there, and that vision has to also be linked to having a job. Because for me, that is what's critical for anyone. An 18-year-old right now in this world of saturated professions, veterinarians don't have jobs, PhDs who are taxi drivers, lawyers who are saturating the markets. People have to be they still should dream, but they should also be realistic and tie their dreams to hard work and employment. And it could be self-employment, but there has to be that vision right at the age of 18, if not earlier. That's the advice I also give to young high school students who are thinking about college and next steps. So I hope that answered your question, my dear.
Yeah, thank you. That was really, insightful and so true. And it makes me think it really connects with this Japanese concept, ikigai, that's been used a lot in the coaching space. They really talk about, you got the ikigai is kind of the sweet spot where it combines what you love doing, what you're good at doing, but also what is needed. And there's the fourth area that now doesn't come to my mind. But yeah, it kind of really speaks to that. It's great if you know what you love doing. Yeah, I sent you a link. Excellent.
Wonderful.
Look, Vijitha, this has been fantastic. It's been so great catching up. So really, thanks so much. And
Thank you for asking me to join your podcast.
Wonderful. So I hope listeners will enjoy this and come back soon for more insights. So for now, have a good day and bye-bye.
Bye, Maggie. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Leadership Insights, Navigating Career and Life. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, keep leading authentically with your heart and mind.